Hello, my name is Annabelle. I always thought it best not to tell anyone about my personal problems because people would only judge me. But now I'm ready to tell my story, and I hope you won't judge me either. This is home. I was given everything I wanted without even having to ask. I had nothing to complain about. And this is my mum, getting ready to host yet another dinner party for a gaggle of friends. There's a lot of dinner parties, and even more bottles of wine. I always just stayed out of the way to avoid them. One afternoon, the laughing from downstairs got so loud I walked out and slammed the door behind me. I spent that day sitting in the park, where no one could find me, and that's where I met Jake. He just sat down next to me and asked me what I was doing. I'd never known a stranger to start up a conversation like that. I was a bit nervous at first, but he seemed like a nice guy. He was older than me, and he'd learnt to look after himself growing up. His life was so different to mine. It was like he was from another world. And before I knew it, we were exchanging numbers. And then he said he had to get on his way. I wish I could have talked to him for longer. After that meeting, we kept in touch, and soon I was calling him my boyfriend. As well as my boyfriend, he was my best friend. You see, I've never had many of those, not genuine ones anyway.
Bye, love. See you later.
Mum left for work early, so I started skipping school when I could. It was easier to do than I thought. When I came over, Jake used to laugh when I asked for coffee. He said he'd never heard of any 15-year-old drinking coffee before. He said I was very grown up. He liked the same music as I did, and he always let me choose what we was going to watch. It was always Disney films. It was perfect, much better than sitting on my own at school. The only trouble was, when I saw him, time just went so fast. I went to Jake's most days, and before I knew it, it was time to go home again. I had to go home early so I could get back before Mum. She had no idea. I can only imagine the things she was up to when she was 15. But parents can be hypocrites, can't they?
Hi, love.
I knew she loved me, but there were times when I think she was more caught up in her own life and wasn't very interested in mine.
Okay.
I didn't need her now anyway. I was making my own life. Things changed when she called a mother-daughter meeting because she was getting letters from school about my attendance, or lack thereof. My mum never shouted, but she could talk for England, going on and on about how I'm letting my grades slip and how I'd never get into a good university if I didn't go to school.
It's about your attendance.
And my grades.
It wasn't about me, not really. It was about Mum's precious reputation. I had to look like I was doing well, more talking points for future dinner parties. My mum started driving me into school every morning, but afterwards I was allowed to make my own way home. There was always time to see Jake then. I missed him so much. He treated me like a proper adult, like a real woman. He even bought me a little lace nightie, and he was pretty eager to see me in it. He wanted me to do a photo shoot for him. He said I looked like a model. He said he was going to send the pictures to his friends.
Oh my god. You look absolutely...
I didn't want him to at first, but he said everyone did it, and he wanted to show everyone how lucky he was.
Please, for me.
You're not going to send them to anyone?
One day, he gave me a new phone out of the blue.
This is for me?
Yeah.
Really?
That way we can always stay in contact. It's your own personal
He said
phone,
it was just
for
in
the
case
own.
my battery died and he couldn't get in touch with me. But I soon began to realise it was something more than that. We were interrupted by a knock at the door.
Rob,
He'd invited a friend over without telling me. I wanted to make a good impression, but as soon as he walked in, I knew that I didn't like him. And after that day, he was always there. I wanted a relationship with Jake, not his mates. One time, it got too much for me, and I had to get out of the room. It was never just the two of us anymore. Without warning, I was slammed into a wall. For the first time, Jake scared me. He promised it'd never happen again, and I believed him. But he just got so angry.
What was that?
I don't know.
He's here to see you. He really wanted to meet you. He really likes you. You're his friend now. Okay? Right?
No.
That wasn't the last of it. I couldn't do anything I wanted anymore. I thought it was his friends who had made him act like he did, and it wasn't the real Jake, who I knew and loved. When I came home, I pretended like nothing had happened. I couldn't take my mum being on my back as well. It became routine, and I started to just switch myself off. Jake hurt me in more ways than one, and he wanted his mates to do the same. And I grew accustomed to a way of life that I didn't even know existed. Half of the time, I wasn't quite sure what I was doing or why I was doing it, but I knew deep down that it wasn't right. A few weeks later, Miss Adams, my form tutor, stopped me in the corridor and asked me to come to her office with her. I tried to make excuses to get away, but she wasn't having any of it. When we sat down, she started to ask how everything was at home. She knew something wasn't right. I tried to say everything was fine, but we both knew I was lying. I hadn't told anyone about Jake and his friends. I didn't know where to begin. Miss Adams kept asking questions, and before long, it all poured out. Miss Adams told me she was worried about me and that she'd have to tell the head teacher at school and the police so they could keep me safe. After that, I actually saw Jake being taken away by the police, and he didn't even look at me. Part of me felt terrible. What had I done? I loved Jake, and this was all my fault. I felt sick to my stomach, but then I started to think about all the horrible things that he had made me do, and I felt angry. There would be no more taking me to different houses and hotels. No more parties with strange men who Jake said that I had to be friends with. When I got home that day, I was still in shock, and I noticed my reflection. For a second, I didn't recognise who was looking back. When he was taken away, Jake took a part of me with him, and I was determined to get back to where I used to be. No more sympathetic looks from other kids at school. It would take a long time for the invisible marks to heal. Your body is your own, and you have the right to defend it. Do not let anyone convince you that your body belongs to them.